we're alluding to your father primarily, okay. I know Bill Staton, Weenie, Beenie for quite a few years, traveled, saw him at a lot of pool tournaments. I think one of them was in Lake Tahoe. It was the first time I met him at Richie Florence's tournament, where we had a 9-ball championship tournament. I first got introduced to him at that time. The one thing I always remembered about your dad was whenever he went any place, he was always dressed immaculately. He always had generally a sport jacket on, or a coat and tie, or he wore a nice sweater, and it distinguished him from all the other pool players, because generally pool players don't have the best attire, don't present themselves. And he looked like a businessman, always conducted himself as a businessman, and very cordial, very thoughtful, had a lot of insight about it, and was willing to give you a lot of advice. Like he'd always say, whatever you do, stay away from the table games when you're in a casino, so you don't get taken off and lose your money doing that. Good advice if you take it. Show that and I'm dead.
There you go, I'm not. Oh, you're so nervous you got to go to the casino, you said. You're shaking.
Shaking my
withdrawals. Yeah, so you were telling me some stories last year with Jay. You remember?
Well, there's so many stories, but at any rate, about going back to your dad. Your dad was very well seasoned. I remember he had, I wasn't around when he was playing a lot. I had played him numerous times when he came to Seattle. In fact, at the 211 Club, we played one Puckett, and I know he was obviously better than I was. One of the reasons, of course, he had a lot of experience, but he played straight pool, and because of the advantage of knowing how to play straight pool and run balls, he was much better than the average one Puckett player. Most of the younger people did not live in the era where they learned how to play straight pool and honed their particular pool skills and their ability to run balls and see patterns, which is quite important in one Puckett. And he was very, very knowledgeable, and he matched up extremely well. And he always had the best of it, and he never got ready to do a bad game. I remember several times he came to my billiard room in Linwood, Washington, Harry P. Q's, and your mother would be in the car. She wait out in the car reading a book all the time. I used to talk to her about how much she read. She read books all the time, and she just patiently waited while I went into the billiard room. And I was thinking, man, great wife. that she'd allow her husband to go in there and play while she just leisurely took up her avocations and read and enjoyed things. Very supportive. Trying to remember, we first, as I alluded to earlier, we first met in Lake Tahoe. I never did go to Merrill Beach where he was located. We did meet down at Phoenix when we played some one Puckett partners down there with Ronnie Allen and Keith McCready and myself. He was there with UJ Puckett. Trying to think where else. There was a lot of pool tournaments in Las Vegas that we went to, and he generally attended. And when I think about your dad, in fact, in Louisville, I think he had attended the Derby Classic in Louisville, and I remember distinctly he and I walked back to the room together, and I had noticed he wasn't feeling good, and that was not too long prior to his death. And I remember I commented he was tired, and he was walking back to the room, and we were just generally talking about the players in the tournament. But he generally he was like, I guess we're a lot alike. Just like the action. He was an action guy. And many people don't understand that. But he lived for action, enjoyed it, and he was always making a bet and always taking a proposition bet wherein he would pick a side and you could bet what you want with him, and he just generally enjoyed that kind of lifestyle. Even though he appeared to be very successful in the business, I know that he had plenty of real estate, or at least we talked about real estate investments, but he was always meticulously dressed, handled himself very diplomatically, and was a very, very smart man.
So,
My recollection is that Keith McCready and I, were together for many, many years on the road, traveling together, and we've matched up a lot of games. And your dad and Keith and I always matched up, or were betting against each other, or had some kind of a relationship where we were contesting each other. And I know that Keith had a long-time relationship with your dad, Weenie Beenie. Knew him back at the time in Washington, D.C., where he had a businesses, and I had not known your dad back then. But Keith, of course, had been there and had participated with Ronnie Allen and Ed Kelly back there. And he has a lot of good stories and good recollections about what was going on in those days. I was not in the pool area at that time, or I never did go back. Thank you for taking me.
hey, Charlie.
Charlie Devalier, I played him, and and you're right, I do recall meeting him through your dad. And he was in Las Vegas. I think he was in the insurance business down there. And he and, gosh, I'm trying to think of his name. Well, one of the poker players that was a pool player that became a poker player, and I'm trying to think of his name, was a good friend of your father's. Unfortunately, I think he's got Parkinson's, and in fact, the last time I saw him, he looked like he was having some difficulties.